give him a hand.
Yeah, so I always just use the title co-founder. I don't really like anything else. Everybody's always trying to give me all these other titles. But I definitely was the technical lead there at Omniture until we hired Brett Ehrer, who was our CTO through that whole time. Well, I'm glad to be down here. Is everybody having a good time so far? Yeah? And so how many people here, I guess, are running a business right now? Then how many people are wanting to run a business? And then how many people are technical? Okay. So I was just going to talk a little bit. My remarks are definitely more focused towards kind of entrepreneurship and starting business, operating businesses, just kind of your mindset on how do you really become successful and get things moving. I think John Richards and I are two peas in a pod normally on most things. Every time I hear him speak, it's amazing how I had to learn all those things like through really hard ways and through lots of failures. In some ways I wish I could have just taken the class and at least had some good thoughts going into things, because like we had to kick out and change a co-founder, and we had all these other issues that we dealt with, and those are hard, and having some insight to that is really helpful. There we go. So these people here, those are my parents. And the reason I'm showing you this slide is because when I was when I was young, I actually never have worked for anybody else. I never even sent a resume off to anybody. I mean, I had a few like little jobs like in high school and things like that, but like actual full-time employment, I've never worked for anybody. And it goes back to my parents. My mom's actually a school teacher, so very education-driven, and my father was a mortgage broker. And when I was in high school, my mom said to me, "John, you need to make sure you make at least $250,000 a year." And I was kind of like, okay, that's really interesting because you only make like 40 grand a year, and my dad makes like 50 grand a year, you know, and combined they're like 80 to 90 grand a year, which we were just a middle class family, and I'm just like, okay. And I just started progressing in life. So of course I went off to college and I became a music major, studying vocal performance. So I'm gonna perform an aria for you right now. And you know, because that was kind of my love, and you're always told you should do what you love, and I was doing that. And so then I actually went on a mission for my church, and as I was on my mission, it was just like haunting me, this like, I need to make more money, like I'm gonna be a high school choir director, I'm gonna be making 30 grand a year, how am I gonna support my family, you know, all these kind of things. And so I always loved computers, and I really have always been kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. And so when I got back, I changed my studies to information systems, which is kind of like business mixed with computers. And while all with this mindset of $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year. One thing I always actually tell people is when you're thinking about you know, what you want to do career-wise, and everybody has aspirations of becoming very wealthy, you will not become very wealthy normally working for somebody else. They're always thinking, how do I pay you less than $250,000 a year? Not that they don't want you to do well and all those things, but that's what they're thinking, where you're always thinking, once you make $250,000 a year, you're thinking, how do I pay myself $500,000 a year? And then you're thinking, how do I pay myself $1 million a year, right? So it's just a different mindset. But when I was at school, I met this guy here. I love showing this old picture of Josh. I don't know if very many of you know Josh, but he was the co-founder with me of Omniture. He runs a company now called Domo, which is kind of one of the hot companies in Utah right now, and looks very different than that now. We've aged 20 years since then. And so I met Josh when we started up these companies, and we were building websites for people. So we were kind of financing our first businesses ourselves because we were just building websites, and then on the side we were making other products that we thought we could maybe work for us. And the reason I was doing that is because I was always thinking, I hate billing hours. I hate that, like, you know, in order to make $1, I had to work an hour for somebody and then they'd pay me. And I had this friend at BYU named Steve Jenkins, and he had a website called Windows95.com. And he used to always go, does anybody here remember Windows95.com? You could go and download shareware and stuff like that. And Steve is a very dynamic, fun person. And he would always be like, John, I'm making money while I'm sleeping. And I was just like, I'm not. You know, I have to go and build this website for people. And I actually did a lot of the original work on Ancestry.com, Zion's online banking. I mean, I was building tons of stuff for people. And actually, I built Steve's website for him too. And he's telling me how he just makes money while he's sleeping. And so we started to think, oh, what can we do to make money while we're sleeping? And so we started a company or a product called Superstats at the time, which has really progressed and became what was Omniture, and which is an online analytics application, so tracking visitor behavior on websites. And we did that in our dorm room. And we ran that for 13 years, taking it from, this is actually me, see look, I had hair. That's what I look like with hair. And that's in a literally 200 square foot studio apartment. That's right next to my bed. I would work there. We took it public in 2006. You can see there, we're actually signing on the NASDAQ. And then sold to Adobe in 2009. And it was quite the journey. And I want to share with you guys some of the thoughts that I had throughout that journey and some of the things that I think can help as you're thinking about starting a business, like how I should be thinking about this. What can I do to progress forward? Oh, so I do have a new company that I'm running now called ObservePoint. We have about 100 people, and it's going really well. We've been doubling every single year. So it's definitely built into me. It's interesting hearing them talk about like how hard it is to get money from VCs and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't think that's just a women thing. Like literally, it's just crazy hard. I mean, I sold a company for $2 billion, and I could not believe how many meetings I had to have with people that just, honestly, most of them, they just don't get a lot of things, especially when you're talking with tech, and most of them aren't super tech people, and they're just trying to understand even what you're doing half the time. And I'm always seems like I'm inventing new things that nobody's been doing, so when you don't have a market already, they especially don't get it. But we had to meet with a lot of people before we were able to get financing. Luckily, actually, myself and my co-founder, we actually financed the first couple $1 million of the business, but then now have other people involved. So one of the main things that there is just your idea. And I just said like I come up with these really unique ideas. I'm actually a big believer that you don't have to do that to have an incredibly successful company. If anything, it's harder, I think, to start a business when you have a very unique idea. You can make tons of money doing anything, just doing it well and moving forward. Literally from, John and I have a good friend who has had a fence company. And he just did fences better than anybody. The fact is fences have been around for thousands of years, right? I mean, that's not a new idea in any way, shape, or form, but he had an idea, it was simple, and he executed. He actually did what he told people. I mean, I actually think the easiest way to become a millionaire in this country is become a general contractor and actually just show up for work. It's like, how many of us deal with that all the time? You're like, please, I hope my general contractor will actually show up today. But one of the things, also everybody always thinks like somebody's gonna like hear your idea and just be like, here's $100,000, that idea is amazing. It does not happen. I feel like all of us hear the stories about some crazy Silicon Valley startup that the guy wrote a check off of a napkin. That stuff just doesn't happen. I mean, yeah, people win the lottery. Are you gonna win the lottery? No, right? And you just have to start and you just have to grow that idea. And so you need to figure out how to finance your idea. And that's like, I'm always thinking about when I think about ideas, how can I start that idea and actually finance it myself? Because even like myself and other investors, we won't, at least I normally don't invest in any company unless it literally already has a functioning product. I don't invest in vaporware. So you just gotta get going on that idea. And I'm going to be blowing through a lot of these things, and I have a lot of stuff on these slides. I'm not going to talk about all of it. It's just there, you can read it. But you need to have a plan, you need to write it down. I actually keep a business plan up to date all the time, even for my current business that I have right now. And what that does is that helps me and my team know exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And we revise it, and we actually present it to our entire company every 6 months. And I think that's pretty unique, but it shouldn't be, you know. Communicate. I mean, so many people think they're communicating with people, and having that plan is an important part of that. I list some of the things that you should have, and if anybody wants a copy of this, let me know, I can send it to you. The other thing that's the most important thing, how many people have friends who talk about all the great businesses they're gonna do, and then never do them, right? And you just got to start. Say, today I'm starting, and you just go. Because there's, I don't know if you guys know this, but no angel is going to appear to you and tell you to start your business, right? But so many people think, well, it's just not the right time, I'm waiting for the right feeling. It's like, it's never gonna feel good, just go, you know? And you'll figure it out. But you have to have a supportive family to do this, because you're gonna work more, right? Unfortunately, I've had my children tell me that I'm not around a lot sometimes, which actually isn't true, but in their mind, they felt like in the early days, especially at Omniture, I wasn't around a lot. And I kind of what I did is I worked probably 80 hours a week, but Monday through Friday, and then I never worked on weekends. So it's almost like I traveled off to work and then I came back. But it's gonna be hard, right? And then the other thing too is it takes many iterations sometimes, especially if you don't nail your business, like what John was talking about, like figuring it out. We unfortunately just built stuff and then said, hey, does this work? And that can be difficult. You know, you gotta keep moving at it. And actually, when we were doing our first company, which was called JP Interactive, we were building websites for people. Superstats, which is what ended up making us all our money, was like probably our 9th thing that we tried. We had all these little businesses that we were just kind of putting out there and trying. And then the key thing is getting the right people, especially in the technology business, having that right technology person. It's crazy how important that is. And so, developers are notorious for thinking that they're the bomb when they really are crappy. Actually, especially in this current environment where developers are so needed. I mean, I read a thing that was saying basically there's 10 job openings right now for every developer looking right now in the state of Utah. And I'll tell you what, those bottom 20% suck. And some morons paying them $150,000 a year, and they're just writing garbage for that guy. Now, I actually have had a little bit different experience where we have our technology teams in Utah, but we actually do use outsource. I agree about India. I've never liked any of the development out of India. But we use some Eastern Bloc countries that we actually get tremendous stuff out of. But all of the leadership is here, and that's just used as, you know, additional resources. And you can get about 2 for 1 typically out of there. But it's a management nightmare, and if you aren't able to deal with all that management of that, it can be very, very difficult because, you know, they're on the other side of the world. But when you're getting together your right people, your partner is a hard thing. Now, John talked about, one thing that's interesting, John talked about how like everybody needs a partner. But here's the funny thing, no VCs like partners, right? It's like you need your partner, but when you actually get the business farther along, nobody likes multiple leaders or anything, so you still have to make sure that only one person's really the leader. I know so few true like 50-50 partnerships that ever survive through the whole process, because one person's going to come across as the leader, and then the VCs, they only want to talk to one person, so they're going to start ignoring the other person. Luckily, actually, Josh and I I think had one of the most successful partnerships, probably that I'm aware of in the state of Utah, where we were true 50-50 partners the whole way through the thing. But I think that's also a lot because I was willing to let Josh be the super alpha male in our relationship, you know? Which I'm a natural leader and I'm totally fine doing that, but I'm also okay being the B player and being like, fine, you have to do this, go do this. Where I think, you know, for him, he really needs to be that one right in charge and doing things, and he does a great job at it. Actually, before I even talk about this, advisors are very important, and having somebody that you can go bounce ideas off of, you got to do that. And the one thing that I do a lot, because there's not always somebody available, is books. I love books, TED Talks, just gathering resources, trying to figure out, you know, how to move your business forward. This is probably the most important thing. Get to revenue quickly. Revenue solves all problems in business. Now, you can have a great technology and it's the best thing in the world, but you go out of business if you don't have money coming in. And so you have to make sure that you're figuring out, how do I get revenue into my business? How do I build my technology so money comes in faster? Again, because you normally cannot raise money until you have an actual operating platform, right? In a software company. And again, I get that a lot of people have lots of different businesses here, but I'm just thinking from software. And even specifically for me, I do enterprise software. So like, my company's gonna do like, I don't know, 14 million or so in revenue this year with like 250 customers. I just find it's easier to take care of less people paying me a lot of money than millions of people paying me $10 a month. And it's funny because you can also go out and close that one contract. You know, one of the boom startup companies from actually the first thing, iActionable, you know, they've basically survived off of a couple big customers, really one big customer just paying them a lot of money every year and been able to grow with that. Financing your business through customers is a lot cheaper than getting money from a VC. And actually, if you think about some of the best companies in the state of Utah right now, Entrada, Qualtrics, they all self-funded for the longest time. Even Omniture, we actually did not raise our first VC round until we were 21 million a year in revenue. We had taken some money from a few angels. Our very first round, we had already had $500,000 a year in revenue. When we took some angel money just from, it was like, we took 100 grand from a couple, actually, BYU professors and advisors. So expenses are what is going to probably put you out of business. Everybody thinks that their business is going to grow 10 times faster than it does, and money's going to come in quicker than it does. So what do they say? Well, we got to get the big office space, because the big office space, I mean, we're going to grow like crazy. My advice to you is control all expenses. Do not buy anything until you already close the contract, because that extra cost is going to put you under. And the fact is, everybody likes it when you're packed into one tiny little office. It feels like it's exciting and energetic, you know? You don't need the big fancy office. You don't need all these other things. Don't, honestly, at least in enterprise software, don't even really buy the servers until you have the contract, because the fact is, whatever big company you're working with is going to sure move a lot slower than you. Like, we have a big deal going on right now with Adobe, and my investors are always like, well, are we preparing? What do we need to do? I'm like, yeah, we're basically ready. I'm like, I'll tell you what, we're going to be ready 6 months before they're ready, because big companies move really slow. So just watch your agreements, all those kind of things. Again, I've seen too many companies go out of business because they just let the expenses get out of control. Listen to your customers. One of my favorite things is listening to customers, because customers will tell you what they're willing to pay you for. But most people don't like to listen to customers. They think they listen to them, but they don't really. Because they know what, you know, they need to build and make and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say that customers sometimes, they won't tell you what they really need. Customers love to tell you how they think you should solve a problem, instead of telling you what the actual problem is. At least that's what I've found. And so a good analogy for that is, that I always give is, you know, somebody comes to you and says, hey, can I borrow your bicycle? And you're like, yeah, great, here's my bicycle, have fun. And then they come back and hand it back to you the next day, and you're like, hey, so what'd you do? Like, oh, I rode it from St. George to Salt Lake City and back. And you're like, I could have lent you my car. Like, oh, what's a car? Right? And it happens all the time in software because they aren't fully up to date on like what technologies are out there and what things can do. And so make sure you really dig in and learn really what is the problem that that customer is solving, so that you're solving that, not solving how they think they should solve the problem. Does that make sense? You know, you want to actually solve the problem, not just give them that little thing that they're asking for, which is how they think the problem should be solved. The other thing too is this is going to help you focus on the right thing, the things that they'll actually pay you for. Like I like to talk about with my product teams, I always say, well, yeah, but will they pay us for that? And sometimes we have to build things no matter what, like even if we couldn't get incremental revenue. But I like to hear that, yeah, that's so important, they would probably pay us an extra $5,000 a year just for that. And we won't always charge for that, but I like to hear that that's how they think about it. Because then you're definitely on the right track. And the other thing is protecting your culture. So many people, every time you hire a person into your company, they're going to bring a piece of culture from a different company. And that can become very poisonous to your company. So like for us, we have a no jerks policy. And another thing, like I always say, we are a company of love, not fear. So I don't want anybody who leads with fear in my company. So, you know, do your people work as hard? Are they used to long hours, you know, or do they come in the morning, they come late? I mean, there's all these things that you have to think about your culture, because if all of a sudden you had, let's say your development team, you know, is used to coming in at 8 a.m. and normally leaves at 5, and then all of a sudden you hire a new development lead who can't get his butt into the office till 11:30 in the morning. You know, all of a sudden all of your developers are going to come in at 11:30 in the morning, right? And so it's just thinking through all that, like what's your culture? How are we doing all these things? Brand, remember you have to actually market to your own company to keep everybody positive and keep everybody, you know, on the same page and moving forward, communicate. I'm so tired of people saying, no, they know. No, they don't. They don't know. Please tell them. You know, but they always think everybody knows. Like, no, everybody can't read your mind. You know, like to my managers, it's like, go communicate, over communicate, right? We always talk about just making sure you're just saying it over and over and over again. I mean, just learn from normal marketing. Like, they don't get it. It's going to take 3 or 4 times of saying it over and over again. Like, finally, like, oh yeah, that's how we work. So, one of my favorite things that people do when they're starting a company is stealth mode. How many times have you guys had people tell you about their stealth company that they can't talk about? Anytime somebody's like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy is never gonna make it, ever. Because you have to scream from the rooftops about your company. Don't worry about somebody stealing your idea, just go, go, go. If you have something that's patent worthy, great, file that patent, but scream from the rooftops. John, how often do you get somebody who wants you to sign an NDA before they'll share their idea?
Frequently.
It's embarrassing. Never ask somebody to sign an NDA. It's like, because it's not like you're going to tell them the true secret sauce, right? You're just telling them the basics of your business. Scream it from the rooftops. It's going to take forever. Like, everybody thinks like, oh, we're going to go from like 100,000 to 5 million in revenue a year because everybody wants this. It might be true that everybody wants it, but they'll never hear about it. And so it's going to take 10 years for that to happen. It's just how it works. And everybody always points to some outlier, that one company, Snapchat, or somebody who happened to do it. But again, every now and then somebody wins the lottery, and the likelihood of it being you is pretty dang low. I mean, even myself, I'm actually 10 years into my new company, right? I have all the experience in the world. I had all the contacts in the world. Starting a business is hard, and it just takes time. And I actually was guilty of that. I thought, my new business actually solves the main problem that I had at Omniture. I had a problem with data quality at Omniture, and it was literally, if a customer was calling, this was the problem of why. And so I thought, you know, this is my next thing. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna solve this problem. Well, I forgot how entrenched I was in that industry, and that I knew all these problems. Well, even all my customers, I realized, didn't even know how their systems were implemented or installed. They had no idea they had data quality problems. And so it's taken us 10 years to really finally get the word out there, and everybody, I'd actually say we're basically at the chasm, like when you think about the maturity model and everything. But there's tons of ways to get the word out. And that will really vary depending on, your market, what type of business you're in. For us, we go to quite a few trade shows and things. And then this here, I'm talking about communicating with your own people. Making sure that you're really taking the time to, within your organization, be talking with everybody. And then also with listening with everybody. You will have such frustrated employees if they don't feel like that you're willing to listen to them. And you want to listen to them because some of your best ideas are going to come from the people who are in the trenches. I actually was talking with one of my managers just recently, and I was encouraging him to actually make sure he's talking with customers, and he was like, well, but that's why we have these people, and I don't want them to feel like I'm overstepping them because they're supposed to be gathering this information. And I'm like, don't be that king who's sitting up in that high tower, just assuming all of your advisors are bringing you the right information. Every now and then you need to make sure you're down talking with actual customers, even just for gut check. So the other thing is really valuing that business partner that you have, valuing your significant other, if you're married, or any other plus one that's in your life. And because they're a part of this too, and you need to make sure that everybody's on board, because even if at home you are very unhappy, that's going to definitely start to reflect in your business. The other thing is saving. Startups love to spend. I mean, I've seen the craziest things purchased by startup companies. I'm like, oh, really? You need a race car? That's fascinating, right? It's unreal. Sometimes I actually think raising money is the worst thing that ever happens to a company, because they feel like they have to spend it. They were given this money, they gotta do something with it. And that's a dangerous mindset to be in. Like, be patient. And the other thing that happens once you raise money is you have a group of investors who expect you to double like every year. And they want to see you just go exponential on that growth curve. And so they're going to keep encouraging you, pushing you to do things. And you need to also remember, well, maybe it's not quite time yet. Maybe you just found out your product needs some tweaking before you really just start wasting marketing dollars, right? If it was still broken. So just be thinking about that bringing on an investor makes you need to figure out that exit. It just puts a lot of pressure on you to grow, when maybe the right thing is to kind of pause for a little bit while you're fixing something or things like that. The other thing that you can never, what if you lose a customer or you do these other things, right? People are only going to invest in you when things are going incredible. The moment something bad happens, it's like the well goes dry. And that makes it very difficult to raise money in that type of environment. And that's when you're going to start getting crazy terms on your term sheet. One of the other things I'll mention to you is when you are going to raise money, all those crazy term sheets that you've heard about from that one outlier, again, the person who won the lottery who got some 40x multiple on future revenue, doesn't really exist. And if you do see those term sheets, you don't actually know the term, or you see those transactions happen, you actually don't know the terms that happened. I guarantee you that person has like 3x liquidation preferences in there and all these other terms that could be hiding things. So it's good to be frugal with your money and spend it the right way. I'm not saying that at all. Make sure you're spending when it needs to be done, but make sure you're also being smart so that you can get through any kind of storm. We went through so many storms at Omniture. Unfortunately, we even had one time where we let go of like 70 people, and those are hard, emotionally draining things to do, and you feel horrible. The one thing that I always had to remind myself is like, well, our only option is either let go of 70 people or let go of all 140. So which would we rather do? We could operate for one more month with everybody, and sometimes you have to make those decisions. So hopefully some of those things help. I was actually really rushing through a lot of this because I normally can It'd take like a full hour just talking about some of these things. But I wanted some time for just a couple of questions if people want to ask something.
So I was in the e-commerce class over with John Richards, and you came and spoke there one time. And it was right after you sold Omniture and everything else. And it seemed like at that point in your life, you were your learning curve and I guess what I'm saying is like, you were progressing and accelerating very fast in your professional career development as a person, as a business individual. Since that point till now, do you feel like you're still kind of like this, or is it plateaued, or how do you keep the struggle?
For sure. I'm actually definitely a dummy. You know, like I am always trying to learn. I mean, and I am not, like the education people who are up here, that is not me, like in the slightest bit. I am a total self-learner. I hate it, because I'm like, why would I go to school for like a whole semester? Because I was a dropout of college. I'm just like, I'm just gonna watch like and read this thing online in like 2 days and learn everything I'm gonna learn in a class. So one of the things too, just to kind of show how self-learning I am, is like how Josh and I met in college. So we were in an information systems class that all the beginning business school kids take. I corrected the teacher 4 times the first day of class. And the reason was because when I transferred to BYU, I went to Rick's because I was too dumb to just get into BYU. I got a 19 on my ACT. And I was always like, where's the singing portion of this test and the drawing portion? Because I'm super creative, right? And, which I have a band, if anybody wants to follow my band on YouTube. And so I had, when I came to BYU, I'd heard about the internet. This is right after my mission. I'd heard about the internet, and I was really intrigued by it. And so I ran into a friend who's like, oh, there's this internet club at BYU. And so I went to the internet club, and I'm like, hey, tell me a little about it. So they told me a little about it. I said, awesome, I want to be a member of your club. Like, great. I'm like, well, actually, I want to be in the presidency of your club. This is the first day I showed up. And they're like, okay, weirdo, you know, kind of a thing. Like, you can be the secretary? I'm like, awesome. So literally within like 2 weeks, now I'm the vice president of the club. Like, I just totally railroaded my way into this club, which was like a Unix users group. I mean, it sounds really dorky to say there was an internet club, but this is 1995, right? And it was kind of a Unix users group. And then I'm learning about this internet, and I'm like, hey, we should get more people involved in our club. Like, yeah, that'd be great. And these guys were super dorks, right? And I hired a lot of them. And actually, one of them still works for Josh. And so I said, I'm going to start teaching classes on HTML. Well, guess how much HTML I knew? 0. But I would study all week, and then I would teach a class on HTML. It's like how I process things, you know. And so I don't know. I just move through and figure things out while I'm going. Question?
What's your favorite book that has helped you?
I'd have to learn how to read. No, there's a lot of good books. Here's my pet peeve about books, and I look a lot. I read a lot of synopses of a lot of books because I normally can't stand how they've taken something that could be written in 25 pages and turned it into a 350-page book, right? I mean, and so it would depend what topic. Like one of my favorite sales books is How to Become a Rainmaker. The 22 Irrefutable Laws of Branding was one of our integral books that we used on how we branded Omniture. I think we do a really good job in how we package a company and everything. And we get even tons of feedback at ObservePoint that we have a great brand. You know, I mean, honestly, the basics, even like the How to Win Friends and Influence People and stuff like that. I mean, I love the kind of thought, everybody's somebody, you know, just treat people well. Let's, you know, and again, specific business things, I would have maybe different books that I'd recommend. Question? Diogo, any questions? I called you out.
Yeah. You're bad. Like, it's so fun to watch you speak.
Diogo and I are good friends, so. Yeah, John.
Yeah, I'm going to ask on this just how did you, in the early first days, how did you evaluate yourselves, what your strategy was going to be, and just like versus tactical thinking, just what
I think we were very technical, actually. Because when we first started, so a lot of people don't know this, Josh actually came on board a couple months after I started the company.
The original name?
So I actually owned 100% of Omniture. And it was called JP Graphics. It was actually the original name, John Pestana Graphics. And then I changed it to JP Interactive when we started doing more tech backends for people. Originally I was just doing a lot of internet logo design and stuff like that. And then I started doing backend systems for people, and then we changed it to JP Interactive. Well, this summer was taking place. Josh then came. Josh was actually doing some acting down in Los Angeles, and we'd always really enjoyed each other's company. And he came back and he was like sharing some business ideas with me. And I'm like, hey, come on board. You know, let's do something together. You sell, I'll build, and that's how we got started and ended up becoming equal partners. And he was honestly one of the best things that ever happened for me, because I got that support. We had somebody to work together, and I think that was one of the best things that ever happened for him. You know, we definitely shared the drive, but our talents were very different, and I think that helped us be very, very successful. John, what was, sorry, I'm ADD.
No,
Tell me.
the strategic versus tactical.
Oh yeah, so.
What like early days, because you went through all these evolutions.
Yeah, so we were just, honestly, we were just going tactically every day, you know, building websites for people. And it really was Steve that made us start thinking about, which was the Windows95.com guy, start thinking about, well, how do we do this? And we actually made a website for a company, a multi-level marketing company, who charged them $35,000 to build their website, and they made $10 million with it. And we were like, we're on the wrong side of this. We actually built it all, right? And so that's when we started looking at other things. We built one website that we sold to Meckler Media Corporation for $250,000, or actually $200,000 when we were just students. You know, we started seeing this, we're like, man, we gotta do more of this. And that's when we started just testing things and more methodically trying to find that thing that would make us money while we were sleeping, as Steve would talk about.
How about the transition? And I think what they find interesting is you were advertiser supported and moved to enterprise.
Yeah, so we were called mycomputer.com at this point. Our company changed names like 4 times. We were called mycomputer.com. We had 2 million customers that we were exchanging advertising space on their website for analytics and other products. We actually had like 9 different products, from message board systems to whatever. And our growth rate was just very mediocre. We were doing like 4 million something in revenue, but mainly ad supported. And we had a few customers paying us, like you could pay us if you didn't want an ad on your website. Well, the internet kind of industry overall, the ad industry kind of crashed there in 2000, right? And so we were struggling to sell a lot of our online advertising. And we basically sent an email out to 2 million customers and said, congratulations, we're switching to paid. If you don't want to switch, feel free to remove us from your website, but we'd love to have you come on as a customer. And we tried to change everybody to basically anywhere from $10 a month up to $100 a month, depending on what services they wanted from us. And we actually ended up having about enough people transition to paid that came close to covering that spread. But all of a sudden, we didn't have any need for all the people we had, because we were supporting 2 million customers before, and now all of a sudden we were supporting under 30,000 customers. And we at that point had been burning money, you know, but this, like, the whole industry was falling apart. You know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the internet crash back in the 2000s, and all the high-flying companies that just went to zero. And we luckily had one investor came in and kind of gave us $400,000 to save us so that we could make it through all that. And that's when we also then decided to make the transition to enterprise analytics, changed the name of the company to Omniture. And that change to the enterprise analytics and that focus is what all of a sudden made everything, like the lights turned on. And we went from like 800,000 to 2 million to 4 million to 8 million to 21 million to 40 million to 80 million to 120 million. And when we sold, we were on almost a $500 million run rate per year in revenue. So it was a exciting time.
When you sold your company, did you approach them or did they approach you?
That's actually a great question. So if you had come to me and you said, John, who's going to buy you? Adobe would not have even been on my top 50 list. I'm like, those are the guys who make Photoshop. Like, why would they want to buy us? Come to find out, the reason why they wanted to buy us was because they felt like they created all the content of the internet, and they knew that all those people wanted to understand what that content was doing. And they saw, Adobe, I don't know if you know, back then had been completely flat. Their stock had really not been doing well, and they were just really needing to figure out how to liven themselves up. And they took a bet on subscription model. They wanted to switch to a subscription model, and if now their stock has gone like insane, and they literally attribute it to that purchase that we made that change for them. So it was exciting.
Josh, can I ask one more question? Last question. Go ahead. Last.
And you just leave too if you don't like what I'm saying. Seriously, I'm not offended by anything. I don't care.
It feels to me like, Salt Lake or Provo back in the 2000s may have been a lot more like St. George's today, a small
Absolutely.
tech community, internet club, if you will. Do you have any recruiting hints for the people in this audience? I think that might be fun too.
I do, and listening to those guys talk, so I'm a hardcore libertarian, so just realize I probably agree with almost nothing that any of those people say. Just because, like politicians think they can somehow just magically make something happen. Things grow naturally. They don't. Normally, if somebody forces something to happen, it will sustain itself as long as they're willing to continue to support it. But then the moment they stop, it dies. So things have to grow naturally. So I really believe if this community wants to be a major tech hub, some company here is going to have to make that happen, right? I do think WordPerfect set a lot of that foundation in Salt Lake. Novell set a lot of that foundation.
Omniture.
Well, later in the tech, but we hired a ton of old WordPerfect people. There's a heritage in our state of a lot of people building on top of each other, right? So we got to take advantage of that. It's amazing how many of my old employees are now doing all their own big companies out there. And so I really think that, you have to, I laughed, I read the one article where literally the Governor's Department of Economic Development basically took credit for bringing Adobe to Utah. I read the article and I was like, what? It literally made it sound like some politicians went down, talked to Adobe, convinced them all to move to Utah. No, they came here because they bought Omniture. Literally most employees in the entire building. Now they've added a lot there because they've liked the workforce here, but that's why they're there, right? So if we want the same thing to happen here, there's going to need a printer logic, or somebody's going to need to grow, and then maybe a bigger company will then start fusing some stuff here. Obviously airport would be a major problem here. If you're trying to run a major tech company and you can't have somebody fly in to see you, that's going to be an issue. At least there is some service that comes in, so that's good. But I would think that might be one of the harder things here. And again, how many people live here in this area? 120. So that's basically the size of Provo, right? So, and I'm not down. I actually love small towns. I grew up actually in a town of only 1,000 people. But it's also just being cognizant of the reality, and that's okay. Love who you are. I think lots of people always want to grow and be. It's there's another 70% of the people who just want things to stay happy and how it is. Are you going to really be happy when a skyscraper comes up next door? Maybe not, because that's not the St. George you grew up in and loved, right? So I think it's just okay to be who you are. And I actually get really frustrated when the government incentivizes companies from out of state and pays them money to come and take my employees away from me. It makes no sense to me. I'm like, okay, thanks for giving Adobe an incentive to hire employees. What about me, who actually started a company here? But Adobe can literally pay about $14,000 more per employee because of a state, and they'll say, well, that's a tax break later, but still, well, then where's my tax break, right? So I just don't think it's their job to pick winners and losers. You guys are fully capable. I have absolute confidence that there's going to be some incredible companies that come out of here, and regardless of what anybody says, because I was told at Omniture by every Silicon Valley VC that why I would never invest in Utah, right? They literally treat us like we were idiots because we were out of Utah. So, and that's all changed, and I think it's even here, nobody would say that to a company here even. So, anyway, thanks you guys. And if anybody has any questions,